It's 9 p.m. Do you know where your key fob is? Hey there, Nate Benson here, and welcome to On the Agenda, the 9th edition. I know it's not pretty, but it'll get you where you want to go. This week, the mayor-elect goes to Albany. Plus, you want some helicopters? I'll show you some helicopters. And we're looking back to a week 11 years ago when I was stuck in the Snovember storm. It was not fun at all. This is the most viewed program streaming Friday nights at 9 p.m. on WGRZ. Plus, On the Agenda starts right now. Mayor-elect Shawn Ryan was in Albany this week talking with budget officials about the financial woes of the Queen City. He outlined a 3-year recovery plan, but didn't really give any other details about it. Ryan also highlighted that the city of Buffalo will need financial help from the state in order to right the ship, so to speak.
There's no more money under the couch cushions. There's no more ARPA money coming in.
Mayor-elect Ryan had one goal visiting Albany on Monday.
We raised the red flag. We let them know the city of Buffalo is in financial distress.
And shared an alarming projection.
We'll have a $19 million budget gap to close out this budget. And then next year's budget gap is in the area of $50 million. So we showed a plan where our revenues aren't keeping up with our expenditures. And it's nothing new. This has been going on.
When the mayor-elect says $19 million budget gap to close out this budget, he's referring to the current fiscal year, which runs from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Now that figure is different than the $6.8 million gap the city controller warned about for the 2024-25 fiscal year, which is still being closed out from an auditing standpoint. The council voted last week to tap into the city's reserves to pay that off. Now the mayor-elect is setting the stage for a rocky road when he takes the oath in January.
We put together a plan, a 3-year plan, myself and financial experts, to show that Buffalo has a 3-year plan to recovery. But during those 3 years, we're going to need some help to do our budget closing during that time. So it took us a very long time to get into this hole, and it's going to take us a few years to get out. But one thing's for sure, we can't do it alone. We can't do it with just efficiency. We can't do it with just revenue raisers. We need help from our partners.
No specifics to that plan yet?
No, very no specifics. What we're looking to do is to demonstrate this year's budget has a hole in it. We won't be able to finish this year. And the next year's budget is even worse. So we know the next 3 years aren't looking so good. We're going to devise a plan to try to fill in that hole as much as possible. And then we come to our partners to help fill in the rest of the hole.
But is the appetite there from the governor's office? Governor Hochul saying this back in January.
I can't say the city of Buffalo, here's a chunk of money.
Mayor-elect Ryan saying news of the continued financial stress of the city wasn't a shocker to state budget officials.
And their reaction was, they've been watching Buffalo. They've seen Buffalo dodge some bullets over the year, but they weren't surprised.
And while the time is not right for any formal requests, the mayor-elect's messaging to state officials was clear.
We're in a deep bind. We're going to need some help, but we're going to come to you with a real plan, and a plan where we're going to put our shoulder behind this, and we're going to do everything we need to do. And only then are you going to be able to ask your partners for assistance.
But some details for what Mayor-elect Ryan plans to do have been revealed by an unlikely source. During a Common Council Finance Committee meeting earlier this week, Deputy City Controller Delano Dowell, when talking about the Controller's office hesitance to go to the bond market, had this to say.
There's going to be additional costs to the city of Buffalo. We also have possible legal settlements that the city will have to pay. So it's not the comptroller saying, I don't want to borrow. And we also have a new mayor looking to borrow possibly up to $150 million over 3 years to cover budget shortfalls in the outer years. As I've the Comptroller Mill Williams have stated, and also I've stated, her office has stated, it's not that we don't want to borrow, we just have to be mindful of borrowing.
If you listen closely to what Ryan had to say during the primary campaign, this is not a huge surprise. He did allude to leaning on bonding options more than previous administrations, but this is the first time that a number has been publicly floated. I reached out to Mayor-elect Ryan's team for more information, and they reiterated that there is no figure set in stone, and the mayor-elect would only bond out to fix the budget if other options had been exhausted, like raising revenues, decreasing spending, and seeking more state aid. The New York State Department of Transportation is kicking off a series of listening sessions as a result of a court order that paused the Kensington Expressway project. The DOT is starting over completely with the $1.5 billion project after a court ruled earlier this year that they did not conduct a thorough enough environmental review and they did not engage the community enough. Here's part of my conversation with the DOT about these listening sessions and what the public can expect for the next few years.
So we're really excited to start our public outreach. It's something obviously people have been paying a lot of attention to, and we're ready to go out and start getting those public opinions from people. So we scheduled our first, what we're calling public listening sessions. That's going to be at the Schiller Park Senior Center in the city of Buffalo on December 2nd from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. You can come in anytime during that time. We'll have representatives from the Department of Transportation to answer your questions. You can come and give your opinions. You can come and just walk around and look at the boards if you want. But the goal is really to get people out and talk to them about what they want to see with the Kensington Expressway. We want to do a transformative project for the city of Buffalo and Western New York, and we know that we've got to hear what people have to say, try to find some consensus, and really find a great project for everybody.
Is this the first of many listening sessions?
It is the first of many listening sessions. We don't have a hard number on it. We plan to have one more this year. We should announce that soon. And then we'll go into 2026 as well. We want to make sure that we get to a diverse array of communities. As I said before, a lot of times we were looking at the communities that were living next to the Kensington Expressway. We know that it impacts more than just those communities. They're important, obviously, but it affects the people that are traveling in from Cheektowaga into the city to work, or that are coming from the airport. If we move traffic, it could affect North Buffalo, South Buffalo. So we want to move it around and hear what everybody has to say. And, you know, the last time around, we had a couple really loud voices, right? And important voices. We had the Restore Our Community Coalition, who's been involved with this for years and had a strong vision of what they wanted to see happen with the Kensington. We had the Eastside Parkways Coalition, who obviously had their own vision of what they wanted to see happen with the Kensington Expressway. We still want to see them out there. We need those opinions, and we're sure that they will be there. But we don't want other voices to get drowned out by that. We know that there's other people that have opinions, the commuters, people that live elsewhere, and so we're pushing to let other people know, hey, we want to hear from you too. Because this affects everybody.
One of the aspects of Judge Koliakovo's ruling was determining, you know what, the DOT did not do this well enough the first time in terms of getting that engagement from the public. How is this time different?
Yeah, well, this time we're doing an environmental impact study, environmental impact statement, which is what the court ordered. We're doing the comprehensive traffic study, and we are going out and literally listening to the community. It's right in the name here. That's the focus here. The focus is going out and talking to everybody. Us not talking too much, us listening. And so, you know, we'll have some boards up there just so you can have some ideas. Where do you live? Where are you going? We'll have representatives from DOT there. But if you just want to come and tell me what you want the Kensington to look like or what you don't want it to look like, we'll sit there and listen to you, and we'll take it down, and we're going to use all of this to sort of influence what the scope of this project's going to be.
Next on the agenda, we're going into the archive and looking at the Snovember storm of 2014. It was 11 years ago this week that a lake-effect knife blanketed western New York with more than 80 inches of snow in some parts. But first, a look at this weekend's weather. Welcome back. November 13th, 2014 was the beginning of an 8-day onslaught from Mother Nature. A few people referred to it as Winter Storm Knife, but formally naming winter storms is as silly as my hairline at times. Most people call it the Snovember storm. 88 inches of snow was reported in some parts of western New York as the lake effect beast battered the snow belt for several days. Several years ago, I compiled this long-form story about my experience in the storm. I've covered a lot of different stories in my news career, from presidential visits, inaugurations, fires, stories of innovation. They all kind of blend together after a while. You become a creature of habit to a degree when you cover news. But one story I think about on a regular basis, and knew from the very first moments of covering it, was very, very different. This is my Snovember story. For me, coverage started on November 17th in Springville with Pete the Hare Gallivan. And to a degree, it was a fairly normal day for us, in the sense that it was typical snow coverage. We did our live hits, went to the nearest salt barn and spoke to a highway supervisor, swung by Kissing Bridge where they were in heavy snowmaking mode. For all intents and purposes, it was a normal morning. But by the evening of November 17th, though, things had changed.
Team coverage and all the day's news right now on Channel 2 News First at 5.
I was called back into the news station around 11 p.m. on the 17th to prepare for coverage on the 18th. And almost immediately, the impact of the storm was having an effect on how I would cover the story. I was assigned to work with Heather Lee on the 18th. Normally, she would meet me at the station and we would roll out together. It was quickly determined, however, she would not be able to make it into the city due to the amount of snow at her house. The plan shifted and we were going to try and meet up in Orchard Park. After a brief discussion with our executive producer, Colin Bishop, it was determined I would take one of our live trucks and work my way to Orchard Park. This happened around 2 a.m. If you know anything about a news van, you know they're very heavy. But they're pretty much just a white Chevy van without four-wheel drive, and it houses a 60 to 100-foot mast that raises and lowers to transmit a signal. They're not ideal for whiteout, snow-covered road conditions. Around 3:30, I'd only made it to as far as the Tim Hortons on Seneca Street near Mineral Springs Road, where I encountered an ambulance and another vehicle that was stuck. I was an hour out from the top of our news program and not even halfway to Orchard Park yet. Another hour of treacherous driving, and I made it as far as the NOCO station on North Buffalo Street in Orchard Park. I was able to get the live truck up and running and broadcast a little bit. Unfortunately, we were in near whiteout conditions at the time, and our signal could not cut through it. So I'm alone in Orchard Park in a glorified Chevy van that can't broadcast because of the conditions in the early hours of what would become a historic storm. This was fine. I was eventually able to make it to the Orchard Park police station to get a few sound bites.
You know, we are currently in a state of emergency. We currently have a driving ban.
Deep down, I was hoping I would be assigned the command center duty for the day and be in the warm confines of the Orchard Park Police Department all day long. No such luck. Knowing the plight of my vehicle situation, our assignment editor asked me to start working my way back to Buffalo as carefully as I could and be in contact as much as possible. Shoot when possible, but please be safe. I chose to swing by what is now New Era Field just to get a glimpse of what was going on there, considering the Bills had a home game that Sunday. I quickly pulled over to get a shot of the stadium, but all you could see was the Lot 6 sign. I worked my way around the area the best I could before getting stuck near the original Pancake House on Union Road around 9 a.m. This is where I had my first breakdown of the day. I called one of our managers and used language I can't use here to express my desire for someone in a four-wheel drive vehicle to come rescue me. I remember hanging up the phone after calmly yelling, "I don't care if you have to rent a helicopter, get me out of here." Stress had clearly set in. I took a few moments and deep breaths and eventually worked the van out of the shallow ditch that I had drifted into with the help of one passerby. Once I knew my van was safely out, I helped that same person get their car unstuck as well. I called the newsroom to tell them the crisis was averted and I was continuing northbound on Union Road. I knew that the demarcation line was basically Broadway. It's almost as if from Broadway north, there was no snow. If I could make it to Broadway, I would be able to make it back. Not knowing what was ahead of me, I commenced the journey. I encountered multiple people stuck at the intersection of Union Road and Clinton Street, including an official from the Erie County Sheriff's Office, who was pretty candid about all the people trying to drive through the storm.
You know, we're just trying to get people off the road. Everyone seems to be having their own ideas that they can get through and nobody can get through. So we're asking people to stay home. And if they're on the road, just kind of pull off to the side right now and, let emergency vehicles and plows get through. But the important thing is they need to get off the road or not get on it at all.
And firsthand accounts from those on the road indicated what I already knew, that it was hell out there. You came from Boston this morning. What time was that?
About 6:30.
And how far along your trip are you now?
Probably about 6-7 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a rough go.
Yeah, how long you been stuck here?
In this particular spot, a little over 2 hours.
Yeah.
Well, I made it through the last hill. The hill seemed to be the tricky part, so I figured I could make it through this one. But I was trying to help some guys push a van up the hill earlier, and that kind of convinced me that I wasn't going to make it at that point.
It's horrific at times, with all the cars, and yeah, it's terrifying at times.
I chugged along the best I could before I ultimately got stuck somewhere between French Road and Lawson Road on Union, and from roughly 10 a.m. until 7 p.m., Union Road would become my home. Volunteers with snowmobiles were assisting first responders. Buses were getting stuck. People were running out of gas and walking to the nearest gas station. The mail would not be delivered. Front loaders were carving paths just big enough for ATVs to get through so first responders could get to emergencies. Eventually, I was asked to call into the show, which hadn't stopped broadcasting since 4:30 in the morning. I gave my account to Scott and Mary Alice the best I could. Now on the job for roughly 18 hours, fatigue was starting to set in, as was the frustration of being seemingly trapped. Then, a knock on my van door. It was the first responder from what I believe was the main transit fire department. He said, "We need you to take this guy. They closed the shelter up the road and hypothermia is setting in for him. If you don't, he's going to die before we can get him to safety. We'll bring an ambulance back when we can." The man looked familiar. It turns out I had captured video of him earlier in the day. At this point, I'm no longer a newsman. I told the man to strip down so I could give him my spare sweatshirt, jeans, and socks. His clothes were frozen solid. My father taught me at an early age to always pack a go bag of supplies if I was traveling in the snow. Handy advice coming to fruition. I had spare jeans, socks, sweatshirts, food for days. A couple of hours had passed, and in the distance in the now black, snowy night, I saw flashing lights. The ambulance that first responders promised had finally arrived with a front loader guiding and carving a path to me. I said goodbye to the man, and in the haste of the moment of keeping him coherent in the afternoon, I realized as he was pulling away that I never got his name. To this day, I think about that situation often. Some news people would have interviewed the guy right there in the middle of their news van. At the time, perhaps in my exhaustion or for his privacy, I opted not to capture the moment. It was worth more to me at that time to be a neighbor. Now, 6 p.m., I began my hour-long journey north on Union Road towards Broadway. As I approached William Street, I somehow met up with Jeff Preval, who himself got stuck and was covering the story in the area. He hopped in the van, and I also gave him a pair of socks, too. People have to start traveling with more pairs of socks. I pulled into the Channel 2 parking lot in downtown Buffalo around 8 p.m. I shook the hand of our executive producer, who was still at work, and said, "One hell of a day," to which he said, "At least you had the live truck." And with that, close out the first real day of this Snovember storm, and what would turn into one of the longest weeks of my career. Coming up on the agenda, there's a bit of a kerfuffle going on involving 2 helicopters that have been ordered by the Erie County Sheriff's Office. The county controller says there's not enough money to pay for them, but the county executive says otherwise. We'll be right back after we pay some bills. You'll try to fix a tiny problem, accidentally create 6 new ones. A stranger will compliment your organizational skills today, proving they have absolutely no idea who you really are. Wrapping up the agenda tonight, it's a tale of 2 helicopters. The Erie County Sheriff's Office is expecting delivery of new helicopters soon, but the county controller warns there isn't enough money to pay for them. However, the county executive says everything's good to go. Senior aviation reporter Nate Benson has this story for us tonight.
It's embarrassing that it's come to this point.
County Controller Kevin Hardwick says his office received a request Tuesday morning.
Send some money for a couple helicopters.
That request was for $3.1 million. Now, the helicopters are expected. It's part of an upgrade by the Erie County Sheriff's Office to replace the current Air One chopper with 2 new ones. The total cost of the helicopters is $7.7 million. And that does not include the necessary hardware, cameras, and additional equipment that the Sheriff's Office needs upfitted for the new ones.
The problem is when we take everything together, we're coming up short. We're not going to have enough money to buy 2 helicopters and properly upfit them.
Part of the reason why?
The whole thing was predicated on over $4 million that Congressman Langworthy was supposed to get us from the federal budget.
According to the congressman's website, he posted formal letters requesting funds for new sheriff's office helicopters in May 2024 and 25, but the appropriations have not come through yet. However, the Erie County Sheriff's Office went ahead and ordered the new Airbus H-125 helicopters anyway, and one is ready for delivery, with the second expected in the next month or two. However, the money is not there.
So as a result, we're going to buy 2 helicopters, but we're not going to have enough money.
Hardwick says right now the county
can barely afford the 2 helicopters without any upfits. We can get them, but we'll still have to upfit them, and that'll cost the taxpayers more money to do that properly.
And we don't know how much that will cost because, according to Hardwick, the sheriff's office has not submitted the RFPs for the vendor to do that work to the legislature. From a legal and formal standpoint, we don't know who's going to be upfitting these helicopters.
No, or how much it's going to cost. We don't know how much it's going to cost or who might be the successful bidder until something comes over to the legislature.
In his letter, Hardwick recommends that the legislature cancel the contract on the second helicopter. That garnered a response from the sheriff's office that said in part, quote, "Our contract with Davenport Aviation is for 2 helicopters, not 1. It does not make sense to us that the controller would encourage opening the county up to legal liability by breaching it. This is obviously an important public safety initiative and multiple branches of county government agree. We are perplexed as to why the controller would act as an impediment to such." However, County Executive Mark Poloncarz isn't worried about the funding and went as far to say that the controller is mistaken on this issue.
My budget office informs me the funding is there. The controller's office made what can only be described as a mistake by not taking into account $1 million that we previously received from New York State to help pay for the deposit. So we feel confident that the funding is there. I know there may be a change. The sheriff had originally talked about turning in the helicopter, but feels he can get better money for it by selling it on the open market, the current helicopter. So for the time being, they plan on keeping the current helicopter, upfitting the other one. The other one should be coming any day now, the first of 2. And then once that's upfitted, we can have that in place and then take the other one and sell it. But my budget office indicates that they feel comfortable. We have the money to buy the 2 helicopters. There's some money that has to be acquired for upfitting it, but that we feel confident we can get. And the controller's office may have made a mistake by not taking into account $1 million that was already provided by New York State. That happens. Sometimes they make mistakes.
The controller's office did eventually wire $3.1 million for the first helicopter on Wednesday. As for the federal funding, Congressman Langworthy's office says ascertaining the $4.2 million for the helicopters is his top appropriations priority for 2026. Before I head home for the night, let's open up the mailbag and check this week's Letters to Nate. This week's letter says, "Dear Nate, you drive around a lot in Buffalo for your job. Is there anything about Buffalo traffic that drives you absolutely nuts?" Yes, let me tell you about traffic circles in Buffalo, specifically Gates Circle. You don't always have to stop in Gates Circle. You can yield, especially if there's no other traffic in the circle. So if there's no other traffic in the circle, you can just continue driving. Continue driving into Gates Circle like nothing else is going on. Now, if there's other traffic in the circle, you then yield. And if there's a lot of traffic, sure, you can then stop. But just stopping for the sake of it is absolutely asinine, and especially if I'm behind you, it cannot happen. Remember, you can send me an email, nathan.benson@wgrz.com, or hit me up on Instagram @NateBensonReports. Please send me all of your letters. You'll get more lovely rants like that. Next week on the agenda, the great stuffing schism. Families divided, experts concerned, and can Thanksgiving be saved? Thanks again for watching. Remember, the news never stops on WGRZ+. I'm Nate Benson, and we'll see you at the next one. Cue the jib. We're jibbing out. We're jibbing. We're going out. A series of listening sessions as it results. Conversations with the DOT about these listening sessions. I had that. Who wrote this? Did I write this? I'm an idiot. It was 11 years ago this week that Yeah, that's like an incomplete sentence, you dummy. How did you write that? You're an idiot. Now for the self-deprecating part of the show where I just insult myself.